Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Boston, you made your voices heard, loud and clear.
This woman is what we need. This woman will be our mayor. So excited.
This is a moment for change. You want a mayor who will deliver big, bold solutions that'll address the high cost of living and open the doors of opportunity for everyone. I'm Michelle Wu. I'm running for mayor. Together, we can make Boston a city that works for all of us.
Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is Thursday, October 28th, 2021. I need to tap myself on the shoulder because I am doing much better with remembering what the date is. Good morning, everybody. It is Thankful Thursday. As you were able to see in my post, I have a guest that is coming in the room in just a couple of moments. He's a delegate from the state of Virginia representing, I believe, what would be what we would call the 28th district, I believe. And we're going to talk kind of on the theme of VA Poly meets Boston Poly. He is a black man. He's a man of faith. And we're actually going to give you just a little snippet of one of his commercials so you can get to know him a little bit better. But I'm going to make sure that he's getting ready to come into the room. We're going to go and say good morning to folks that are in the room before we show that commercial. Good morning, Naraki, beautiful. Good to see you in the room. Props, good morning, sir. Good to see you in the room. Jen, good morning. Good to see you in the room. And she is praying for those unsheltered and the homeless around what's going on at Mass and Cass. Good morning, Ma. Good to see you in the room as well. Sister Debbie, good to see you in the room, and good morning to you. Sharon Cornelius, good morning. Good to see you in the room. Sister Rena, good to see you in the room as well. Brother Quincy, good to see you in the room. Oh, yes, we're showing commercials now. Trying to, if you haven't seen anything yet, bro, just give us a couple more weeks working with props and we'll get some things together. Brother Conan, good morning. Good to see you in the room as well. Good to see you. And so I'm going to go ahead and show the commercial of our delegate. And Sharon said that she is ready. I'm going to go ahead and show the commercial of our delegate, and we will be back with you in just a couple of seconds. Dina, good morning. Good to see you in the room. Thank you. You know why.
Tara Durant wants you to think I'm a danger to public safety. But I'm a pastor. I've dedicated my life to making families safe, bringing people together, and making our community stronger. I don't support defunding the police, and to say otherwise is a lie. I helped improve first responder benefits, increase state police pay, and push to increase police academy funding to improve policing. We don't need false political attacks. We need results, and I'll keep delivering for you. I'm Joshua Cole, candidate for delegate, and I sponsor this ad. Tara Durant wants you to think I'm a danger to public safety. But I'm a pastor.
So
I've dedicated my life to making families safe.
And that was our delegate Cole. He's going to come in just a second. I know when we got on a couple of seconds ago, he was having some camera issues. And so he is in the room, and we're going to get him on camera in just a couple of seconds. But I just wanted to make you aware of a few announcements and some things going on in our community. All right. He says he is ready. Let me just make him aware what to do, and we will bring him in. This is definitely a good friend and brother that I've known for many years. Oh, there he goes. Back when I was in ministry. And so we're going to go ahead and bring him in right now. Bishop.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Good to see you, sir. You are looking wonderful. I was going to attempt to try to switch my colors around. You have the same color as a couple of favorite candidates of mine in the person of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and also Michelle Wu, running for mayor, is just a little bit lighter in the purple vein around royalty. But Delegate Cole, I'm going to do my best to say delegate and not bishop, apostle, and pastor, because the vein that we're in today. But welcome to the Java Cafe. Here and there, you've chimed in, you've sent messages of encouragement. I think in your first campaign or second campaign, I had the opportunity to give minimal advice. And it was definitely a pleasure to do that. So welcome, say good morning to the people. For those that don't know you in Boston, hopefully folks from Virginia are tuning in to hear your message. If you are tuning in for the first time from Virginia, welcome to the Java Cafe. Please hit like and follow. But Delegate Cole, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're in public service. You're in ministry, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, the role of the church in civics, according to Micah 6:8. We won't go too deep, but I'm going to put you on. The time is yours, sir, and please introduce yourself and tell us why you are running to be a delegate to represent your district.
Well, good morning, everyone. Hey, Boston. I'm so glad to be here with my friend Jimmy and just to chat with you all about all that we have going on here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As he stated, I am a pastor here in the area. I'm blessed to represent the district that I actually grew up in. After living through 2 redistricting cycles, I have consistently lived within this 28th House district. And I actually got started a couple of years ago. Every year, the General Assembly here in Virginia hires middle schoolers to come work for them. When I was 14 years old, I was appointed to work as a page for the House of Delegates, and I worked for the governor's office. I came back around roughly 10 years later as a 25-year-old to work in the state Senate. And when you're older, you're paying more attention. So being a pastor in the area, I knew all the elected officials, but I didn't know their policies. So watching them up close and personal, being a staffer, watching committee meetings, hearing subcommittee deliberations on bills where these subcommittees were not recorded back then, watching them say one thing and voting another way, I was like, we really have to replace these guys. And it was never my intention to run for office. I thought I was going to be like a volunteer, a super volunteer of someone's campaign. But after we came through 2016, no one had announced they were running. And our district was actually the seat of the Speaker of the House. So when I announced I was running in early 2017, I was literally running against the Speaker of the House for 4 months. 4 months in, he retired. Fast forwarded to Election Day, we lost by just 73 votes in a historically Republican district that had been Republican for over 40 years. Fast forward to 2019, we won by over 1,000 votes, becoming the first Democrat to flip this district in 40 years. And so we got straight to work, and I'm excited to delve into the work that we've been doing since being elected.
I know some of your story as far as ministry. I've observed and watched, and we've shared just conversation about some of the social ills in our community. And so let's maybe go into sort of a first topic and then go into policy. So, sir, you're in ministry. You're also a delegate. And, some people say that politics and ministry don't mix, being a pastor and politics don't mix. How have you been able to navigate both spaces to improve the quality of life for your members and your constituents? I won't say what the song is, but all at the same time.
Well, when I joined the Virginia House of Delegates as a Democratic elected, I found myself with 4 other pastors. There's other pastors in the House of Delegates who are Democrats, 2 of which actually pastor churches. The other 2 are, like associate ministers. And so this is something that I had, been used to. My uncle was a town council member, and he was a deacon at his church. When he retired, his wife took his place. She was a deaconess at the church. And so I've been used to seeing, religious leaders in politics. And I always tell people, I do believe in separation of church and state. That doesn't mean that preachers and religious leaders can't be involved in politics. It just means that as the government, we can't deem on the people which religion to follow. But I use my faith and what I believe in to fight for the low income families, to fight for those who don't have a voice, to fight for the least of these, to make sure that they have representation in the halls of power. And as your congresswoman says, those who are the closest to the pain need to be closest to the power.
Come, sir. And so one of the hashtags that I put up is VA Poly meets Boston Poly. And just describe for me maybe your three top observations of social ills there in your district. And I want to see if they're similar here to Boston.
One of the major things, and I know there's other things I would love to talk about, but since we're specifically talking about the social ills in the area, a major thing we're seeing is access to affordable housing. All across the spectrum, there are new housing products being propped up by the Board of Supervisors and the City Council in the region, but none of them are affordable. And so people have jobs in the area. And if you know anything about our region, our district is literally the gateway to the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. So we're literally only 45 minutes south of DC and an hour north of Richmond, Virginia. And so a lot of the people who make good money don't even work here. They work in DC, they work in Maryland and Northern Virginia, and they bring that money back down here. So if you live here and you work here, it's hard for you to afford to live here. So access to affordable housing is key. We're still finding out that access to affordable health care is a major problem. Even after expanding the Medicaid expansion, back in 2018, we did that before I joined the General Assembly, and that went up to about 400,000 citizens. With the pandemic, we've gone up to over 500,000 citizens. When I was in the General Assembly, we expanded access to include dental care as a part of that Medicaid expansion. And that's been a great one. And then another thing is just making sure we have equity in our education system and in our schools. And so all across the district, we're seeing great schools here in our region. But we want to make sure that we have teachers of color. We're recruiting teachers of color. We're making sure that our students of color are testing well. We want to make sure that they're giving the same opportunities as their white classmates and their wealthy classmates. And that's what we've been fighting to do, especially as a member of the Education Committee.
Okay, that's one is that the only committee you serve on, education?
So I have three. I'm on education, public safety, which deals with all the policing bills, and agriculture and natural resources as one committee.
Really? And so, you know, your boy was an urban farmer this year, growing collards and all the other stuff. I might need to check in with you. I really wanted to. So you said that it was housing, healthcare, and the last one was education. And so that is so interesting because we are in the middle of a mayoral race, a historic one. Next Tuesday, we're going to have the first female of color. I know you've been keeping up. And so, yeah. But the thing I wanted to ask you similar to, and those are similar issues here, and they may be ranked differently. But one of the things, what is your district, or how is your district, or does the opioid crisis, is it impacting your district? We have an area here called Methadone Mile. Wow. Where there is a density and a centralization of services, but also people coming for services, unfortunately, get caught up with folks that are down there doing, I'll call it street pharmacology. Yeah. And so is that an issue in your area as well? Because that is major here in Boston.
Yeah, we're finding that the opioid epidemic, which is in Virginia, it is here, is, you know, I'm not going to say limited, but it's very big in our rural areas. The district that I'm blessed to represent is rural and suburban all at the same time. Yep. And so talking with our sheriff, we've heard the issues of the opioid epidemic, you know, finding people who have overdosed and making sure they had the police deputies, the sheriff deputies have access to Narcan so that they can do what they need to do with those services. So yes, we are seeing an issue with it, and we're trying to address it to make sure that the citizens have access to mental health opportunities and making sure that they have other opportunities. We know a lot of people struggle with addiction. A lot of people struggle with other things because of not having the right access to jobs, not having access to the things that they need to do well. And so we want to make sure that jobs are coming to the area, that people have access to counseling, that people have access to the mental health needs that they need. And we've been working on that as a General Assembly with our new Democratic majority. And I've been excited to do that work for our community. But I still think we have a lot more work that needs to be done.
Absolutely. And I want to go into, because that delves a little bit between you mentioned mental health, and it does deal with public safety, and you serve on the public safety committee. There is a national outcry post George Floyd, pre George Floyd, in reference to defunding the police, reforming the police. So far, we're 4 for 4: housing, healthcare, education, and healthcare. You know, the opioid crisis could sort of go under that, but there's a public safety tone to that as well. And so, what are the issues that you're finding there when it comes to public safety? Is the district or the assembly generally embracing police reform? I'll start with that one. Where are you guys there, specifically with your district, though it's a full assembly? Where are you with police reform?
Yeah, absolutely. As you showed in my commercial, I have been attacked hard for quote unquote defunding the police. However, you'll never see on social media or anything where I've called for defunding the police. However, being a member of the Public Safety Committee, we actually led the charge on policing reform here in the Commonwealth of Virginia when we were called into special session by Governor Ralph Northam last year, right after the George Floyd incidents and the other incidents that were taking place all over the country. And so we went in and as I've been knocking on doors, you know, people are saying, y'all ain't passed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Y'all ain't passed the George Floyd Policing Act. And I was like, actually, we've done that in Virginia.
Here.
So we passed Breonna's law, no knock warrants at the nighttime. We passed that in Virginia. One of my colleagues, Delegate LaSharice Aird, who represents Petersburg, carried that bill. We out of the House, we banned chokeholds, but once it got over to the Senate, we had to do some negotiating and some conferencing. And so we limited chokeholds in the Commonwealth of Virginia. My mentor, former Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy, carried that legislation and we passed that. We also made sure one of the major issues we were having in the Commonwealth of Virginia was that our state police were not paid according to what they were doing. And so I say this all the time. When we look at police officers, we have put so much on them. They are not babysitters. They are not marriage counselors. They are to protect and serve. And so we've laid so much of this on them. And then we expect them to do their job. And no wonder that so many of them are having so many different issues or issues at home because they have all this responsibility laid on them that they're not supposed to be handling. And so we wanted to make sure, one, that we were returning trust in our communities between the policing and our communities. And I live in the crux of that. I'm a Black man in America who is an elected official who has to listen to the concerns of the Black community who are afraid of police officers, who don't trust the police officers. And then we have police officers who are trying to do the good work, but they're marred by the bad cops that are out there.
And again, what was that? Six. We added the opioid crisis, which was 4, and I'm sorry, public safety 5. Okay. VA Poly meets Boston Poly. You mentioned the fact that you're a Black man. And I know here in Boston, there are in the mayoral race and also and it's funny because one of our district races up here, a candidate who's a white woman who is not doing well in the race, put out some racial tropes. And I think there was a similar flyer that the other side tried to put out about you. How much does your demographic play first in your campaign, in your desire to represent? And I'm talking more from the adversarial perspective. Has Virginia progressed, or do you see some of the racial tropes that we're seeing here in Boston as well?
So for those of you who don't know, Virginia is the former capital of the Confederacy. Just not even a mile away from where my office is in Richmond is the White House of the Confederacy. We just a couple of months
trauma,
ago,
Jesus.
We just a couple of months ago took down the Robert E. Lee statue, the major statue in the city of Richmond. Yep. And I carried legislation changing Jefferson Davis Highway to Emancipation Highway. So there's a couple different things we're looking at that it's been used against me because I'm a Black elected. I am only one of 3 Black electeds out of 23 in the General Assembly that don't represent a majority Black district. And so I think my district is about 19% Black. And so when I'm doing things in the community, I hear Black people who say, well, what have you done for me? Mm-hmm. On the flip side, I hear white constituents, especially on the conservative side, who, why you always talk about your race? It's Black this, Black that, Black this. Why do you always mention Black?
Come.
And and one of the things, my response is, well, I mean, have you looked at me? And so as a Black elected, it's incumbent upon me. Yes, I have to fight for everyone that I represent, but it's incumbent upon me to make sure that African Americans and brown people literally have a say at the table, because this is the first time we've ever had a Black person to represent the city of Fredericksburg and Stafford County in the General Assembly. So it's incumbent upon me to fight for my people, but recognizing I have to fight for everyone that I represent as well. And so it definitely does. With this being the former capital of the Confederacy, they do try to do their racial tropes. We saw the mailer that went out with my face in flames, my skin darkened. There was one mailer that they sent out on 8 Democratic incumbents. 2 of us, which are Black males, they try to use us as puppets, so they use marionette strings. But for 2 of us who were Black males, those marionette strings were actually rope, and we were suspended in the air while the other 6 candidates were on the ground on marionette strings. And so they know what they're doing. They also know they have no policy and nothing to offer. So they're trying to scare and use dog whistles to bring out their base, to say, hey, you know what you need to do, so show up and vote.
So far, sir, we're 6 for 6 or 7 for 7. As a Black man, not just in your district, but from your observation, you are very aware of national issues. How would you describe being a Black man in America?
Ooh, it's tough. It's really hard right now. And especially, listen, if you're a Black elected official, if you're a Black police officer, there's a lot going on right now. We are in tough times. We're in hard times. Many Black men are trying to provide for their families. If you're Black and queer, you're trying to make sure that you can make it home safe at night without being beaten or your body found laying in the middle of the street for just being who you are.
Come, sir.
And so it's very hard right now. And if you're watching right now, I just want you to be encouraged, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, who you love, or your financial background. Be encouraged as a Black man in America. Hold your head up high, keep fighting, doing the good fight, because you are worth, you have worth, you are somebody, and America needs you. Don't forget that America was built on the backs of Black women and Black men.
And I'm going to ask you to speak to Black women as well, because I know here, and I was aware of sort of a national movement, and we've had conversations about this, that there was like a hashtag called No Men 2018 in Boston. We had our DA, first, Black female DA, Congresswoman Presley, first woman and Black woman to represent our district here, the Mass 7th here. And so there has been this sort of conversation about, Black men don't respect and treat Black women correctly. I love, and I want to delve into this a little bit as a man of faith, but you recognize and support and advocate for queer people. And I know that being, we know how we were raised and what, and I want to talk about that a little bit. But the first thing is, what would you say to Black women? Because I asked you to talk about the men, but you can't talk about the kings without talking about the queens. So go ahead, sir.
And I think it's key for us to understand, especially as a Democratic elected official, we look at the trends and we look at the numbers. The Democratic Party is indebted to Black women all over this nation. Here in Virginia, we had a Democratic primary for our governor, and we had 2 Black women running. And we really wanted to see a Black woman run as the top of the ticket this year. We weren't able to get that, but we do have a Black woman.
Hold on, delegate. Boston people, did you hear what he said? 2 Black women that wanted to get to the top. We're about 8 and 8. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So we had 2 Black women. One was my mentor. I was her state chair. While we didn't get that position, we do have a Black woman running as our lieutenant governor, both on the Democratic side and on the GOP side. So no matter what happens, I want my friend to win, though. But no matter what happens on election night on Tuesday, we will make history by having the first Black woman lieutenant governor in Virginia's history, the first woman and the first Black woman lieutenant governor in Virginia's history. Here in Virginia, the Senate pro tempore is a Black woman. The first time in Virginia's history, 400-year history. The majority leader in the House of Delegates for the first time in 400 years. Not only is she a woman, but she's a Black woman. And so we as Democratic voters, Democratic supporters, liberal supporters, owe it to Black women for all of their hard work. And I know many a times the work that you've done is thankless. organizing, taking people to and from work, doing work in ministry, doing the work that you do at home. We just made sure we passed legislation this year to make sure our in-home healthcare workers receive paid time off as hourly workers. And we know the majority of those workers are Black women. So as a Black elected official, I have even seen the disrespect where Black men, Black elected officials will talk over and plow over Black elected officials. I have seen it. And I just want to let you know that you're seen, you heard, and every time I have the opportunity, I try my hardest to elevate and lift up the voices of Black women.
You all see my face here because this man can preach. And I've heard him preach, but I've never had this sort of public hearing his policy stances publicly. So I'm sitting here as a brother and a friend, like, yes, sir, yes, sir. There's nothing that you named, delegate. That now, do they call you delegate or representative?
So depending on where you come from, technically here in Virginia, there's only 3 states that have the House of Delegates, us, Maryland, and West Virginia.
Okay.
Depending where you come from, they either call me delegate or state rep.
Okay, I'll say state rep then, because delegate is a little more syllables, Jesus. No, but I really, it's so interesting because I casually just started putting VA poly meets Boston poly, state versus city, for those that are trolling, and I didn't do a state to state comparison, but it is so interesting to hear the similarities, and it's also so interesting to hear your approach to it, and it's one of much balance. And so I want to go a little deep and ask you, you mentioned transgender and the queer community, LGBTQI plus, and how do you, I'm aware of our Christian background, generally speaking, it's a conflict. And then in the Black community, we have our own issues. I'm not going to get too deep in it, but a certain comedian on Netflix has raised some issues. And so how do you, sir, little personal, but then policy too, how do you balance, presumably, your convictions and policy when it comes to that? And then I'll probably ask any of the superiors, archers, and bishops be tapping you on the shoulder when you.
Well, one of the things that I always do, no matter who I'm communicating with, no matter who I meet, we have a Latin phrase called imago Dei, which literally means the image of God. And just taking a quick theological break, when we were created, you look in the book of Genesis, and everything that God creates, he said, oh, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. But when he made man, he said, it's very good. Well, if we had a fall from grace and we left the garden, if you fall from very good, you fall from very good to good.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone that is created bears the image of God. We may not have the likeness of God, but we all have his image. So every person that I come in contact with, no matter if I agree with them, if I like them, if I love them or not, I have to treat them as the image of God. And this is what Jesus said, what you've done to the least of these, you've done to me. So regardless of my theological upbringing, regardless of how I feel from my scriptures and my studying, when I step into politics, everyone deserves to have the ability to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so when we're fighting for legislation, we are the first Southern state to pass an anti-discrimination bill for the LGBTQIA community. I have trans family members. I have gay, lesbian, bi family members. And it's incumbent upon me as an elected official, not as a preacher, as an elected official, to make sure that they have the same rights as their neighbors, to have access to homes, to make sure that they're protected if anyone wants to beat them up because of who they are, to make sure that they can't be fired from their job, to make sure that they have access to free prep. All of these things are included in what we're fighting for, to make sure that people can pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
So I said I was going to try not to call you, because all in the pre we getting ready, I'm like, Rev, Bishop, Rev, I love you and appreciate you so much, sir. Because I'm going to behave. Your interpretation of Micah 6 and 8.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think what we're looking at is how we're fighting for the people. And as we take into concept of who is, I think for me, the biggest thing is how people have representation. how God has created each and every one of us to make sure, and we say it in the Constitution, that everyone has inalienable rights given to them by their Creator. But when we look at elected officials all over this country, people are trying to take away rights. We have to make sure that, one, as people of faith and as elected officials, that Lottie Dottie and everybody can pursue the same happiness we want to have. And I recently saw a quote that said, religious freedom is not being oppressed because of what you believe. Religious freedom is making sure that you don't take your faith and oppress other people's faith. And that's what I believe in. You know, we can do what we want to do, worship the way we want to worship, but let someone beside us worship differently, and then we want to get all up in arms. We can't have it both ways. Live peaceably with all men. You have to try your best, is what the Apostle Paul said, to live peaceably with all men.
I appreciate it, sir. I'll end with this because I didn't confirm with your team how much time you had. And so it's about 9:34. Okay. The role of the church. Boston, for the first time, did Souls to the Polls. For the first time. For the very first time. I'm going to, now that's probably one area where we probably differ. For the first time, Boston did Soul to the Polls. I'm going to leave that there. And shout out to Representative Russell Holmes that led that. But for the first time, Boston did Souls to the Polls. What is the role of the church when it comes to voting?
Yeah. So number one, I believe that voting is a civic sacrament. We know that for those of us who believe in sacramentality and the holy mysteries, a sacrament is how we have an intangible interaction with a tangible God, a tangible interaction with an intangible God. And so by us voting, we exercise our rights to make change in the communities. It's a mystery how things change because we put the right people in office. And I also believe that social reform begins within the church. You look at the civil rights movement. Who led the civil rights movement? It was the church. And I may get some pushback on this, but remember when Roe versus Wade was being argued and fought, it was religious leaders who were fighting for Roe versus Wade because of the public health crisis of women dying in back alleys. And so it's the church that has to raise up the voices of the unheard and the ostracized and those cast aside. And look at what Jesus did. Jesus was picking up people with leprosy. He was walking all along the streets with people who the politicians and the tax collectors would turn their nose up at. It is the church that has to lift up those voices. And for years, the church has been doing a good job until we got to about the 70s and the 80s, and the moral majority came and they wanted to take authority for themselves. So we have to push back against that. It's about making sure that we fight for the people, the homeless, the widows, the orphans, those around us who can't fight for themselves. It's the role of the church to do that and encourage your people to get out and vote. Encourage a civic mentality amongst your people. Don't be afraid. Don't stand back. Don't, minimize the voices of the people. Create civic engagement ministries in your communities. Make sure that you have a person that is keeping the community up to date on what the city council is doing, what the board of supervisors are doing. When committees are being heard so that the people can go and testify. That's the role of the church. And we should lift up our voices like a trumpet in Zion and cry loud and spare not.
Everyone stand. Oh my Jesus. Rep, I knew that this was going to be a very, very good conversation. I suspected the wonderfulness of and that's our church word, of what you were going to articulate. But it is just amazing, sir, to know that there are, and I think there's a little bit of difference in our age. May I ask how old you are?
I am 31. I'm the youngest Black legislator in the General Assembly.
All this time, I never knew I had you by 19 years, Jesus. But so then I feel comfortable saying it is awesome, sir, to know that there are young people in our communities. The only differ that we had in everything that we talked about today was the fact that this was our first time doing Souls to the Polls. I know in the South that that's something that's done around every election. Last question, and then I'll ask you to give your final remarks. Oh Jesus, I lost it that quick. Oh, okay. Your final remarks, sir. And if it comes to me after, then you can just add more to your final remarks. And they on here talking about the rep is a baby.
Man, I didn't even notice that I was seeing the comments come across. So I apologize, y'all.
But they're enjoying you. They're enjoying
you. I thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate it. I'm not sure if we have friends in Virginia watching today, but again, early voting is going on right now. Get your butts out, go vote. The last day to go vote is Tuesday, November the 2nd. If you have friends and family, you're watching from Boston. If you have friends and family in Virginia, all across the Commonwealth, make sure you text them and tell them to get out and vote. This is an extremely tight election this year. The Republican nominee and the Democratic nominee are virtually tied in the polls. I have just a slight 4-point lead over my opponent. And so we need Lottie Dottie and everybody to come out and vote because we could be Texas or Georgia as soon as January. And we have so much progress that we've made over the last 2 years, and we have to keep it up.
That last part, you said what about Texas?
We could be Texas or Georgia as fast as January.
So if you're in Virginia and you see this, and sir, I'll make sure you get the hard file so you can share it on your website or whatever. Bostonians that live, we're not as bad up here. We're not totally free from the notion of some of that stuff. But if you have family in the 28th district, which is in Fredericksburg, Virginia, send them a text. Tag them in this post and let them know that there is a good black man out there that's looking to represent them, whether they're a man and whether they're black or whether they're gay or they're straight. He's looking to represent them in their issues. And so Representative Cole, I'll just share some of the comments with you so you can be encouraged as well. And I guess this is the last question. In all that you're dealing with, we always move in a mental health space. And on Mondays, we ask people to describe their mental health status in one word presently, and then what they do for self-care. And I know you're a man of faith, but I'm going to challenge you away from your faith. Describe your mental health in this race presently, and then what do you do for self-care, sir?
So my mental health in this race, God, now I'm gonna be honest, this is my third election cycle, and this has to be the worst election cycle I've ever been in, just from the attacks and everything else like that. But I believe God come November the 2nd. And so I would say I'm in one of those mushy areas with my mental health. But one of the ways I do relax, I'm a pianist. So I sit down at the piano when I come home and just play the piano. Or for me, I just got to listen to a good worship playlist and just let the Holy Spirit soothe me and speak to me because I know I probably would have acted my color or gone off the cuff on some of these folks in Jesus' name. But by the grace of God, as by his mercies, we are not consumed.
Well, let's keep it 100 that they wasn't consumed. And I'm going to leave that right there. I really appreciate you, sir. I'm going to keep the folks in and share some announcements with them. But folks, please, hand claps, love, encouragement, prayers. Keep this brother lifted. Seriously, if you know folks in Fredericksburg or you know folks in Virginia that may know folks in his district, just send the text, send the call, tag them in this because we need people like him. And Lord, I just felt something crawl up on my back. It's not just the house, and I'll leave that right there. So, yeah, we need representation like you on a national level. Yeah. And so, if we ever get you and the Congresswoman, if you can ever win, not if, when you get to the squad, I'm about to go get me a white sheet and some oil. Jesus, I love you, bro. And don't start. I was texting some of the Bethel folk. They're in Holy Convocation this week. Anything you want to say to Bethel Nation, honoring Apostle Evans, also my dad, who you had the pleasure of knowing as well, Bishop Bernard and Bragg. Any during their Holy Week, would you like to give them a greeting? Because
hey, Bethel family, I know I'm normally with you guys this week, but of course we have election cycle, so I can't be with you. But hey, Bishop Smith, hey to my Bethel family, especially the Adjutants Corps. God bless you. And then of course I have to give a shout out to, I still call her my forever boss, Reverend Robin Smith, our great friend. So God bless you, God.
Robin is actually the sister of my landlord. Wow. And so that's so interesting. The connection is really real. But no, brother, I really appreciate you, sir, and be encouraged in what you're doing. I'm so godly proud of you. And I could picture Bishop just walking up on you, putting his hands on your cheeks and saying, yes, all that. So love you much, bro. And we will definitely be in touch. Yes, sir.
Good. God bless you.
Your team, please thank your team because they
will do. Thank you.
All right. Love you, man. we had the wonderful opportunity of talking with Delegate Representative Cole, Father Cole, as Josh was calling him on here. Just again, want to make you aware of some announcements. One, I need you to pay. And before people start dropping off, let me do this one first. And so some weeks ago, you all may have heard, and I shared this in the commercial the other day, of a young woman that was killed. And a lot of people knew her, and I was trying to pronounce her name properly the other day, and the family told me just say Peanut. And so this young lady who was well known in the community by the name of Peanut was killed. The family has got together and raised $75,000. And I want to be specific about what they say here. There is a reward of up to $75,000 for information leading to the identification, 1, arrest, 2, and conviction, 3, of the individual responsible for the homicide of Peanut, as I was asked to refer to her. If you have any information, please contact Boston Homicide Detectives. Call them at 617-343-4470. The thing that I would ask you to consider, if you know anything, 1, it's not snitching unless you were involved. 2, imagine if it was your family member and you knew that somebody out there saw something. So please take that into consideration. I want to also remind you that, now listen, let me just bring up a little clip. Well, I posted it on social media. Go on Java with Jimmy and on Twitter. I think it's on my personal page as well. Madam President, as I refer to her often, is coming in the room. It's a pre-record, but when I tell you, and I'm going to cast it live, and so you all will be able to comment and interact with it. Tanisha M. Sullivan, Esquire, president of the NAACP Boston, is coming in for a earlier edition of Freestyle Friday. For those of you that are charter members and members of the Java family, remember we used to do Freestyle Fridays with Darren. Donovan, who I heard from, guys, is doing well over in Spain, and Kristen and others. She's going to come in and talk about yes on question 3. That was about 60% of what we talked about. And then toward the end, Black Boston politics, Black Boston education, voting. There's some strong brew being served tomorrow. Then I also wanted to remind you that Tuesday evening, listen, this is an opportunity, and I have another one to mention as well. This is an opportunity for us to come together, and I need to update this flyer and really iterate and make sure that folks know we are practicing all CDC advisories, wearing your mask, and unless you're eating or drinking, and do that in areas with people I'll update the flyer. But on election night, we are coming together at 8 p.m. and DJ Chubby Chub is going to be our in-house DJ. International show, my good friend and brother Roy is going to do a couple of performances, and no stranger to the Java Cafe, Carlos Enriquez, our political analyst, is going to come, and we're going to watch the numbers come in real time. Some of the candidates are going to come by in the early part of the evening to answer everyone's question. Mama Howell's Wings and Fish with a side of fries will be available for $10. There will also be a 50-50 raffle. And what that is basically you buy raffle tickets, and depending on how much money was raised, not depending, but if you win, you get half of the money that was raised from buying the raffle ticket. So we're doing that as well. Bar proceeds are going to Kay's roof improvements. Winter is coming. Darren Howell has worked almost for the last 100 days to ensure that we create spaces in our community where we can go relax in our culture among Black and brown people and have a good time. But we want to make sure the roof is fixed. And so bar proceeds that evening are going toward the roof being fixed. There is no charge to get in, but come out, have a good time, celebrate, but be wise, celebrate wisely. And that's taking place on next Tuesday. And then I also wanted to mention that the young people from Teen Empowerment are debuting their Senseless Smoke film at the AMC Theater, Lowe's downtown. And you can get your tickets by going to bit.ly/senseless smoke ticks. SENSELESS MOKETIX. All right, go and support these young people Also, a member of the Java fam is the newly appointed LGBTQI liaison on behalf of Mayor Kim Janey to the city of Boston. Quincy Roberts is asking that you join him. If you missed the 16th, if you missed the 23rd, there's another session on November 13th where you can go and talk with Quincy about your issues, your concerns, your suggestions, and ideas and observations to support the quality of life of the LGBTQI plus community here in Boston. There's also a survey. I'm not sure if Quincy is still in the room today, but you can go back to my page and get the link from maybe yesterday's Java with Jimmy. All right, everyone, I'm getting ready to wrap up. I think I have a 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And so I'm getting ready to wrap up. Today is Thursday, so you will not see me again. Well, you'll see me tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Don't forget, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we will be here with the pre-record with our Tanisha Sullivan talking about Yes on 3, Yes on 1, and also some y'all want to tune in tomorrow. You think with the appearance with the sheriff and Domingo yesterday? My phone is just bing, 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 bing. Just people really got a lot out of that. And yesterday I left with the sentiment of support for the notion. And my thing is, and I'm guilty of this in some cases and then been accused of this and wrong because I bring suggestions about 85% of the time. And the thing is, it's easy to sit back and critique. I do it all the time. But I come with suggestions. And so I got to give the sheriff credence for at least trying to do something. Now, political punditry, what is he getting out of it? Is it really all his money? Is it going to get reimbursed? All that other stuff was in my inbox and text and stuff yesterday. It comes down to a humane approach for people that are dealing with addiction, homelessness, healthcare issues, COVID, losing custody of their children, not in contact with their family members, rape, STDs. And so I'm not on here championing and caping for this sole approach. However, it's something. Can we keep the good elements of it? And then in the critiques and the complaints, what are some other ideas and suggestions, especially state legislators and city council members that could have influence on the health commission's budget and what they're doing and certain inquiries they can make about the work from past to present. So that was a wonderful time of getting information and clarity. Domingo, stated what he needed to state on behalf of some of the community. And so it similar to that conversation, not as in depth and around one issue, but Madam President is definitely spitting fire. So please come in tomorrow at 9 a.m. That's it for me, everyone. We will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have an awesome day. It still looks a little dreary out, but smile. It's Thankful Thursday. Before we go, do me a favor for those that are still here. Just write something you're thankful for in the comments, and we will be on our way. Let's be intentional about some thankfulness. I'm thankful for each and every. Oh, how could I forget? November 27th. We are leaving the studio and we're going to do a live studio audience. I haven't had that scared, nervous feeling in a while. We're going to do a live studio audience Java with Jimmy on Saturday, November 27th at 11 a.m. at the Underground Cafe and Lounge. We're going to start going out and coming together as the Java family and Java Cafe. And so, yeah. Y'all get props. But yeah, on the 27th, we are coming together. It's a free event. We're asking everyone to make sure that they support this Black-owned business. And we're going to have some conversation face to face. And some of you are going to get the opportunity to meet each other for the very first time. I think that's kind of dope. And I'm going to get to meet some of you for the very first time face to face. the relationships I've formed with some of you that I've never met in life over text, and this is just amazing. All right. And so I'm out of here, y'all. I feel a little emotion coming. All right. We shall talk to you on tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have a good day, everybody. Peace.
Well, COVID-19 has deeply hurt our community. I recognize that we needed to heal. Healing spiritually, healing emotionally, healing physically. That's why we knew we needed a vaccination clinic at 12th Baptist Church.
I just really had a lot of initial hesitation. From hesitation to education is how I got to a point of like being more hopeful. When I decided to get the vaccination, I really wanted to come here because I knew we had a site.
I was one of the first people when I was afforded the opportunity to be vaccinated, to be an example myself.
The vaccination will definitely change life. I want to get back to a life where I can be around my family and friends.
With every vaccination, we're one step closer to hope.
Join us, get vaccinated.
Have hope.